Hello, welcome to yet another episode of Let's Be Brave, the podcast. Good ideas from inspiring people for troubled times. I'm your host, Rain Perry. And this episode, we have some tales from the Great White North. That's right, we are going to Canada for today's episode. But did you know that in Canada, what we call park rangers, they call wardens? Not the people who oversee a prison, but the people who oversee a national park. And today's guests, there are three of them. They are a musical trio called the Wardens, but they aren't just called the Wardens, they actually are wardens. Ray and Bradley and Scott are Banff, Canada National Park wardens, and they have spent their careers protecting people and animals and riding the backcountry on searches and performing high-angle rescues. And they tell stories of all of that adventure on stage in song. And it's a great show. They have a slideshow they do. You really learn a lot about life up there and about taking care of our resources and how to interact properly with animals. And that is actually the topic of today's episode. Today's episode is Let's Be Brave about human-animal conflict. And I just thought that these were the guys to talk about something like this. And so I asked them to be part of the show. One little disclaimer. When I first started to interview them, I failed to hit record. So what you'll hear is us coming online after that happens and I get things straightened out. Okay, without further ado, I am very happy to introduce the Wardens.
Hey, Ray, how are you?
We got this phone line. We're connected up.
I think we got it. Yes, I think we really have
All
it
right.
now. Okay, so we're going to start from the beginning again, if you don't mind.
No.
Can you, as a founding member of the Wardens, would you mind giving a quick summary of the history of the Wardens?
Sure. Well, the Wardens, we're a three-piece band, and we play upright bass, guitar, and two guitars, and sometimes mandolin. And we are all three of us wardens, which in the U.S. you might think we're prison wardens, but up in Canada we're national park wardens. So we're like park rangers, and we all work or have worked in Banff National Park, and that's where we met about just under 20 years ago. And in 2009 there was a big warden centennial, a national park ranger centennial in Banff, in the town of Banff. And wardens from all across the country came together to celebrate, and there was a music portion, entertainment portion, and all three of us sort of kind of did something individually, and then at the end of the show we kind of looked at each other and we thought, hey, let's do something together. And out of that evolved this trio and our shows, which our music involves a lot of harmonies and storytelling. Our songs are stories, and we always preface our songs with these great stories. And in the Warden tradition, it comes from the original Wardens were cowboys for many years. They were cowboys. So that's sitting around the campfire telling stories was a big part of it. So that's a big part of our show is telling stories and taking people on a ride into the lifestyle and culture of living in the bush and working with wildlife and working on horseback and just living in these remote cabins.
Which is, I'm sure that there's some amount of modern technology that is a part of being a warden up there now, but I bet a lot of it is still the same as it ever was.
Yeah, I think that's exactly true. Especially with the horse work, the horses, that's still in many ways the most efficient way to travel in the bush without getting mechanized. And because you can carry a lot of stuff, and the infrastructure is still the same. You're still, wood stoves out there. I mean, there are some modern conveniences. Instead of gas or propane lights in these cabins, we now have solar panels out there, so we have solar lights. But yeah, I mean, the whole concept of national parks is that they don't change, that they stay wilderness, and in order to do that, you have trails, and trails are not turning into roads, and then are not turning into highways in national parks. So that's why we travel. Travel a lot in that way. Of course, there's what we call the front country, and we've got highways traveling through there, and that's where a lot of the exciting wildlife work comes, where all the tourists visit and get a chance to see these beautiful places, and of course that's where the all those exciting wildlife moments come for people, and they come from all around the world to get the chance to see a grizzly bear.
And sometimes aren't the smartest when it comes to seeing one.
That's right. Well, people just don't know. They come from parts of the world where these animals don't exist at all, and or they come from cities where they don't even understand interactions with animals. So, we're dealing with new people and trying to educate people all the time. And sometimes people get too close. They get excited when you see a mom and a cub grizzly bear. Boy, I'll tell you, it changes. It takes away any rational behavior, and you want to jump out in the car and you want to hug that little baby bear. But
Totally.
but of course, that's exactly the last thing you should be doing.
Yeah. I know you have stories about bears, and you can either tell me one that you have told, or you may tell me a new one. Any story about
Sure.
about humans and bears?
Sure. Well, with the parks that I work in now, I work in a couple of national parks just west of Banff called Mount Revelstoke and Glacier National Parks, and they're beautiful high elevation parks. And the highway Trans-Canada Highway runs through it. So, a big part of the job is keeping these bears from getting killed on the highway. And I got a call early one morning, about 5 a.m, that a little grizzly bear cub had been struck on the highway, nearly dead. And so I went out to check it out, and I didn't see this cub, but I did see a dead porcupine on the road. And I thought, well, okay, somebody must have gotten the report wrong, and the porcupine might have looked like a small bear cub. So I just sat there for a moment, and then I looked down the road, and up the ditch of the road comes the mom and one of her cubs. She had 2 cubs normally that we knew her because she'd always frequented the highway area. And I was like, okay, well, maybe she did lose a cub, but I don't see her cub. And, maybe it was injured and walked in the bush. But so I sat there and watched her for a while to see what their reaction was. And they both came to the edge of the road near where this porcupine was, and they just started bawling. And in the next little while, they were circling the whole area, and it appeared that they were looking for for this other cub that had been lost, maybe, and they just kept on doing laps and just bawl. It was such a human emotion expressed in that moment, and we were investigating this incident, trying to find this injured or dead bear cub, and in that moment when we had our heads down, kind of tracking where the cub might have gone through the bushes, all of a sudden the mom came roaring out of the woods, and I've never jumped back 20 feet. I don't know how, but in an instant I was back 20 feet. I had my bear spray out, but she was just needing a bit more space and was obviously emotionally distressed, and was that way for another hour before she sort of figured it out and just left the area. And we never did find the cub, but bears will they'll get emotional like that, but after a while they'll just move on from it, and she still had this other cub to tend to and to bring to maturity.
Oh gosh. Well, how do you what is your strategy for dealing with people who it seems like the more we encroach, the more these human wildlife interactions are happening. What's your best advice for people, or how do you deal with people who are being clueless?
Well, I mean, we want people to obviously enjoy them. I think it's really important in terms of protecting landscape. If you don't have people seeing and enjoying and in the the beauty that is in that comes from nature, you have no chance of protecting them, because ultimately we as humans make decisions on land management. So we want people to enjoy them, but in a safe way. So obviously, getting too close or getting out of their vehicles puts them in danger. But what it also does is it makes bears too comfortable around people, and they get too comfortable around people, and it seems like a okay situation until it's not an okay situation. And a bear, when their space bubble is burst, they can be ferocious in the wrong time. And obviously, if there's contact with a human, then we, sometimes as wardens, we have to make difficult decisions in putting animals down. So we don't want to do that. So a lot of it is education and talking to people, all our staff, whether it's wardens or at the information centers, or at campgrounds, we make it's really important for us to educate visitors as much as we can. And visitors are excited to, it's a great opportunity to learn about these fascinating animals.
Yeah. Now, in your show, you tell some stories about moose coming into town. There's some sequences of
the elk coming into town.
Elk, that's what it is, right? Yeah. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, we in Banff especially, it's good habitat for elk all around Banff, and Banff, the town site, happens to be right in the middle of the park, and right surrounding this great good grass for the elk, and the elk they love coming into town, and so we just end up spending a lot of time just trying to chase them out of town so that they don't eat people's gardens. They love people's gardens. And so we'll use hockey sticks with a plastic bag tied on the end of it, and they just can't stand. It drives them nuts, that rustling of the plastic bag. So we'll chase them out as much as we can, but inevitably they like to come back to those gardens in town. So it's kind of like an every morning thing. You just work on chasing them out, but it's pretty much, I'd say, the Canadian way to work on deal with this problem is to use a hockey stick. Yeah, that's right.
Solve every problem.
That's right. Yeah, we solve a lot of our problems with hockey sticks up here.
Oh, well, that's great. Well, so all right. Well, those are excellent, and thank you for sharing those stories with me. I think that if Scott's around, I'd like to talk to him about wolves.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
We'll bring Scott into the conversation here.
Okay, awesome.
You're next up. We got California on the line, Scott. Yeah. There you go.
Be a movie star or something. Hi, Rain.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing fine, thanks.
Good.
Just had a nice little conversation with Ray, and now it's your turn.
All righty. Fire away. If you want to.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering. I know that you. Now, Ray, for the listeners, he's the one member of the Wardens who's still actively serving as a warden, but you served for many years, and you worked a lot with wolves. Could you tell me about that?
Well, I actually didn't work with wolves.
But I mean, you were there during the process of the wolf. The wolf.
Well, what happened is I spent half my career, a 35-year career, half of it was on the public safety function, which is mountain rescue, avalanche control. Mm-hmm. And the other half I spent working backcountry horse work.
Yeah.
So well in the backcountry with horses, I encountered wolves many times, and I think that probably that's what you're thinking of. I had a lot of pretty close encounters with wolves. But I did also spend a bit of time working with wildlife conflict around the high visitor use areas of Banff Park also. Yeah,
and that's kind of I want to hear about that, but also the the wolves were gone, right? Weren't they at some point effectively?
At one point they were gone from the park. Yeah, they in the old style method of wildlife management was kill the predators so that to enhance the elk and the deer and stuff, and so they were hunted, they were poisoned, everything else back in the probably 30s and the 40s, the 50s, right. And then in the 60s they were pretty much gone from the park. So I had an encounter while I was a backcountry warden at one of the remote backcountry cabins. I had an encounter that was the first time wolves were actually seen back in the park.
Oh,
and
wow.
it was just a pack that just came from somewhere, we don't know where, probably out in the province somewhere. But it was just, I was in a warden cabin with another warden, and he had his pet dog with him. And he was just going to let the dog out in the morning, and we looked outside, and there's 6 wolves were sitting on their haunches just outside the cabin. So the dog, of course, came running back inside. But that night, the wolves came back, and they surrounded the cabin because they knew the dog was in there, I guess, and they were howling all around the cabin. So it was a pretty cool
oh my God.
encounter for the first time wolves had actually been seen back in Banff Park. And then they sort of regenerated over the years, and now we have, about 3 major wolf packs in the park. The one wolf pack that's in the Bull Valley, which is the high visitor use area, has a lot of problems. It get highway kills and that kind of stuff, because the Trans-Canada Highway runs through the park. And it is fenced, but wolves are pretty smart at getting through and around the fence sometimes. Mm-hmm. So we have had the wolf pack in the Bull Valley has kind of risen and fallen over the years. It's never been a huge pack. But
the strategy has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, like, as I understand it, because that's how we did it in California, was they realized that the predators are needed for the health of the herd.
Exactly. The health of the whole ecosystem requires all the species to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to talk a little bit about human-wildlife conflict and how your work has?
Sure. Well, in Banff Park, we get about 4 million visitors a year, so it's Canada's busiest national park. Mm. And the main valley they all come to is the Bow Valley, which is the main high visitor use corridor of the park, and it's got a major town site of Banff, which swells up to 20,000 people in the summer with visitors. And, and the 4 million visitors are all over the park at every picnic site and every campground. It's also got the Trans-Canada Highway running through that valley, and the Canadian Pacific Railway line runs through that valley. And so you can imagine that it's also happens to be the lowest and best grass valley in the whole park. So it's also the best wildlife habitat in the whole park, because a lot of the backcountry are smaller, higher valleys, more alpine, a lot of rock and ice. But the Bow Valley is a montane ecosystem, so it is a very a special place for wildlife. So you can imagine the conflicts that occur on a day-to-day basis with 4 million visitors interacting with into the best wildlife habitat of the park. Everything from people getting too close to elk and bear, and a bear comes out onto the Trans-Canada Highway to eat dandelions on the side of the road, and next thing you know, there's 150 cars pulled over and people jumping out and trying to take pictures of a grizzly bear, trying to do a selfie with a grizzly bear, And so, it's one of the jobs you'd have to do would be to go out there, and get people back in their vehicles, and then we'd have to shoot scare shells and rubber slugs at the bear and get it back off the highway. And we also have a big thing where a lot of elk wander into town, and because it's a predator-free zone in town, and they're very habituated to people, the elk. So, and then one of the problems with that is the cow elk will start dropping their calves right in people's backyards in the spring and alleyways on the golf course. And so people can wander too close to a calf, and the cow comes charging out and injures somebody for getting too close to the calf. So we have to deal with those kind of situations.
You can't prevent the cow from doing that, right?
No, we can't. What we usually do is we actually do what's called a scoop and run, where one warden will pick up the calf, and they'll just like any newborn calf, they'll just lie there docile in your arms. And of course, the cow doesn't like that too much. So you'll have one warden pick up the calf and run like crazy, and his second warden uses a hockey stick with a flag tied on it, waving it in the cow's face and running backwards to keep the cow back from trampling the wardens while they're doing that. And then you get the calf out of somebody's backyard and down the road and kind of to the edge of town anyway, and you can flag the whole area off at that point and warn people away from the calf.
You kind of pick a place where you're going to take it.
Yeah, this just happens like sort of in the first 72 hours when the calf is born, because that's when they can't get up and move around, so the cow will protect them. And so that people happen to, and they lie in the grass, you can't even see them until you almost trip over them. and then it's too late. You look up and here's a cow coming for you. So, you know, so it's we have that kind of stuff going on. And, you know, I'd say it's everything from a squirrel in somebody's attic to a full-on grizzly bear mauling that happens once every 5 years or something like that, or to elk wandering into town. To almost every species has had some kind of a encounter with people along the way. But elk and bears are the two main ones that cause the most injuries to people.
Yeah, right. I bet. Do you find that? Do you think that people over time are getting a little bit less, like maybe the selfie thing has made people more oblivious, or do you think that people are learning a little more about how to be smart around wild animals?
Well, I think the park bends over backwards to get that message out.
Yeah.
And it does have some effect, but there's still always, you know, when you get 4 million visitors, if only 2% of them are idiots, that's all it takes. That's all it takes to have a big. There's still a lot of problems. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So. Yeah. I mean, I picture Yosemite here, you know, and I've seen people do crazy things with animals, you know, even deer, which can definitely hurt you.
Oh yeah. We've had people try to put a toddler on an elk's back and everything else. You know, it's like. And we get a huge amount of tourists from Asia. So of course there's a language barrier there as far as understanding parks brochures and signs and stuff. Right. And they haven't got a clue about. They're so out of their element that that's a whole other problem. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's how I would be if I went there. So,
yeah. Well, a lot of it's common sense, but a lot of people don't have common sense. So.
No, that's true, unfortunately. But that's why there has to be search and rescue. A lot of it.
Yeah, so, it's the wildlife conflict section of the Warden Service is a pretty hopping place, that's for sure.
Every day.
As is the rescue service. There's the park wardens that do rescue work in the summer are not, you know, rescuing, you know, mountain rescues and everything from a person bucked off a horse to a mountain biking wreck to a climbing accident. They're coming and going. You can do up to 5 or 6 rescues in a day sometimes.
Oh man, yeah, that's pretty intense. Oh well, thank you for sharing those stories, and I wish I could talk to each of you for half an hour, but I gotta make the whole thing be about half an hour. So I guess
we'll give you over to Brad then.
For Brad, yeah. Okay, excellent.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Great talking to you, Rain.
You too.
Okay. Take care.
You too.
Hello, Rain. This is Brad.
Hey, Brad. How's it going?
It's going all right. Thank you very much. Yeah. Just moved into our new house, so we're eating on boxes and trying to make a home of it. You know, it's going to take a little while.
Well, that's kind of exciting, but also
it is really exciting. Yeah, well, we're still married, so that's great.
That's so far so good then.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So you guys
How are you?
I'm doing fine, thanks. So you guys are rehearsing tonight some songs and
we are,
tuned up?
We are. Sure. Yeah, we got a new record coming out, and we got a nice little grant from the Alberta Arts Foundation, so that helped us out quite a bit, and we're just in the process now of, you know, cobbling it all together and knocking off one song at a time type of thing. And sure, Ray mentioned that we've got a gig at the Canmore Folk Festival on the main stage, and hoping to debut some new material anyway, so we're excited about that.
That's great. So each interview that I'm doing for this podcast, I ask the person I talk to them about whatever the topic is, and then in your guys' case, I'm talking about wildlife conflict. But then at the end, I ask what music you like, and I know that you love a lot of different music, so I'm going to leave you to be the one to talk about the musical influences on the Wardens, but also on you.
Okay.
Are you there?
I am.
Okay. So you want to tell me a little bit about the music that influences the Wardens?
Sure. I think the music that influences the Wardens would be, iconic folk musicians like Ian Tyson for sure, and Corb Lund is an Alberta singer-songwriter, and really has nailed down, in my mind, some of that new age cowboyography type of songs. We love Ian and Corb, and I'm a huge Tom Russell fan, as you know, and Tom is, just has raised the bar for songwriting in our style, and we try to really get down into the weeds with our songwriting and make it a story, with a beginning, a middle, and an end, Rain, and in the style of Tom's writing. So and iconic in Canada, Gordon Lightfoot is another one who influences Scott's guitar playing for sure, and his songs are so awesome as well. So I think between those four people, that's a very deep well to draw from, and really enjoying their music.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon?
Oh, the four pillars. They're like four pillars.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I'd go with Tom Russell, Gordon Lightfoot, Ian Tyson, Corb Lund. Yeah, there you go.
Great. So you obviously being a warden, all of you have had to have encounters with wildlife, and I've talked to the other guys about bears and elk and wolves. You want to tell me a wildlife story? It can be any of those animals or some other one.
Yeah,
I know you do a lot of horseback stuff.
We sure do, and when we started, Scott and I, is really back in the true Men for the Mountains era, where we go in the backcountry for 17 days at a time by ourselves, and come off for 4, and rotated in that cycle right through the spring, summer, and fall, and so exciting to be in the backcountry. In those remote valleys and mountain passes where all of those wildlife in their home ranges. And, I've seen lots of bears out there. I've seen the odd cougar, wolves as well. But, when I'm traveling out there by myself, I usually, have 3 head of horses with me. And, I've probably ridden past more bears than I've actually seen, because, you're going down the trail with 3 horses and you're singing a Johnny Cash song and the horses are clip-clopping along the road and such. And, we're making a relatively lot of racket going down there, and, and they don't want to have anything to do with that. So they're, they hightail it out of there, and probably seen more bear backsides than I have, any confrontations. I've been really fortunate in my career that I've, never really been in a jam with wildlife. I've always been able to, distance myself from them, or, given them an appropriate heads up. So, they had space there, they had room to get where they needed to be. But, it's just been a fantastic career, Rain, out there, and working in the showcases of our country, the national park system. And it's just given us so much material to write about. And, we continue to craft these songs, based on our careers as solitary park rangers out there. It's been a fantastic experience, and the wildlife has, definitely played a key in that as well.
Well, I mean, what you do is so engaging, and people around here are still talking about the show you did, and it's really wonderful. Another thing I find is you guys bring a backcountry warden work ethic to your music too. I mean, I watched you guys do your sound check, and it was like you were determined that it was going to be, it had to be right, And
definitely, yeah.
sloppier, and you are not.
Mm-hmm.
It's like tying ropes or something. You're not going to mess it up.
Right. That's very important to us, just because our show is, can be so engaging, and the lyrics of our songs can be very, cinematic and captivating, and it's just absolutely essential for us as artists to ensure that our audience has a good sound, because our stories can be so mesmerizing, and we like to have the instrumentation underneath that just a little bit, and it's critical to a good Warden show that everybody can hear every word of our lyrics and they can take it all in. And we bought these great ear trumpet lab microphones now. I'm not too sure if we had them in what was the name of your town again, please?
Ojai, in Ojai.
Ojai, yes, right. I'm not too sure if we had them then, but
you had one mic you were singing into, yeah.
Oh, very good, yeah. So we did have them there. So we use those nice large diaphragm condenser mics. It's very appealing. It's got a great eye appeal. And another thing I like about those condenser mics, those ear trumpet lab microphones, is you can see your face. When you use those properly. You can step back a little bit, and you're not locked on these traditional microphones where you have to be right, your lips almost right on the microphone itself. You can back off a little bit, and then people can see your face and see your animation and see how you present the songs and stories. So
and it fits in with the sort of around the campfire idea too. It's more,
absolutely.
It feels more accessible. So
I agree, and it's a little more old timey, and kind of has that Louisiana hayride, Grand Ole Opry kind of thing going, with a little choreography around the mic. It's important. It's an important part of the show that we work hard on.
No, it's obvious that you do. And, gosh, I really appreciate you guys talking to me. And there are so many more stories, but folks just need to come see one of your shows to hear them. And apparently, some new ones coming too. So, and
we are coming back to the great state of California in January. We are going to be in Northern California, up in Red Bluff, California, and we'll be doing a show there for the bull and gelding sale up in Red Bluff, California, not to be missed. And there's a big rodeo there as well. So we got invited there to perform a couple of shows up there. So really looking forward to the bull sale in Red Bluff and performing up there. That's going to be great in January, and we'll put it on our website for sure.
Okay, excellent. Well, happy moving and have a good rehearsal, and I will look forward to talking to you guys next time. I do. Us
as well, Rain. Yeah, for sure. We're one of your biggest fans up here, and I look forward to speaking to you again before too long.
Okay, that was the Wardens. And, I said at the beginning of this podcast series that I was going to write a song for every episode. And I've broken that rule one time because I did a cover for episode 3 with Chuck Prophet of Paul McCartney and Wings' Silly Love Songs. And I'm going to break the rule again here because it just doesn't seem like I should be doing an interview with a band like the Wardens without you getting to hear what they sound like. So instead of me, the song this week is going to be a song by the Wardens. It's one that's really sweet and cute, and I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, the Wardens with Government Cowboy.
I can ride, I can rope, I can jingle and pack, and I can tack a shoe on. As a matter of fact, I head for the hills and ride for the gov, getting paid for doing something I really love. I'm a government cowboy, loping down the trail, hoping to heck if I have a wreck, the brakes on my horse won't fail. chopping wood, skidding logs, drift fences to fix. You got a jug, buddy, I got the mix. We'll stay up all night and hell, we'll have a ball. God dang it, my head, we missed radio call. I'm a government cowboy, loping down the trail, hoping to heck if I have a wreck, the brakes on my horse won't fail. God, go catch that sorrel. Now you won't see us riding at the Calgary Stampede, Vakisco, Pinoka, or Laramie, but we've been on a lot of 8-second rides, there's just no one around to testify. I'm a government cowboy, loping down the trail, hoping to heck if I have a wreck, the brakes on my horse won't fail. Saddle up, boys, we're burning daylight. So you find the horses and I'll do the truck. Jim is meeting soon with a trailer and truck. We're heading to town, our wallets are thin. We're hoping the girls got the timesheets in. I'm a government cowboy, loping down the trail, hoping to heck if I have a wreck, the brakes on my horse won't fail. Yeah, we are government cowboys, loping down the trail, hoping to heck if we have a wreck, the brakes on our horse, brakes on our horse, brakes on our horse won't fail.
Okay, that's it. Thank you so much to the Wardens, Bradley, Scott, and Ray for participating in this week's episode of the podcast. And thank you for listening, and all of you who have told me what you thought about it. It's just been a great response. This is the end of season 1. 6 episodes. We did it. And we will see if there's a season 2. That remains to be determined. But in the meantime, would you please like, share, subscribe, all those things that one can do with a podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, any place you're listening. And I want to keep the conversation going as I'm deciding what to do about the future of the podcast. So please consider coming on over to the Facebook page, Let's Be Brave Podcast, and talking about people that you know in your life who are doing something to help, or what you're doing to help. I don't need to hear about superheroes. I just want to hear the little things that are making a difference in the world. You can also tweet or Insta with the hashtag Let's Be Brave, no apostrophe. And I just thank you so much for being a part of this little weird experiment. Let's be brave, people. Thanks.